Alright, y'all, so I have not gone in front of the camera in some time. I like to do it every couple of months. Maybe I like to do it maybe twice a year. I don't do it that often. Excuse my stuffiness, I got sick over the weekend, which kind of sucked because yesterday my girlfriend and I and her son went to see Batman versus Superman. I hadn't seen it, and I must have sneezed like 30 times during the showing of the movie. My head was stuffy. I was just feeling miserable. But I got through it. I actually liked the movie, and I know a lot of people were bashing it. I'm not a huge DC fan, so I'm not one to start getting into like a lot of the details of well this and that. As a movie itself, it was great. It was great. And also, I'm a Boston guy, so Ben Affleck, in my opinion, killed it. Killed the Batman role, and I'm really happy that he did, because there was a lot of chit chatter on whether or not he could handle it after what he did with the Daredevil movie many years ago. So, wanted to get on today and talk about a post that I posted something on Instagram on Saturday when I was still feeling pretty good. I wasn't feeling shitty then, and it sparked up. It was a comment that was made in general, in terms of plagiarism, but it was also, in my mind, specific to a number of people that, of course, I wasn't going to call out publicly, because I don't think that's the forum for that. So I just what I want to do before I get into this is I want to go back a little bit in my history, because all I have is my views, my reality, my perception. So about 3 years ago, and I've said the story, I'll try to cliff notes it real quick and just go as fast as I can through it. About 3 years ago, or whenever the first Avengers movie came out, 3.5 years, whatever it was, I went to Toys R Us. I had tickets for the movie. I went to Toys R Us that morning or the night before, and I wanted to get some figures. Now, I've always collected action figures. I've been collecting action figures since 1995. And by collecting, I mean I would get whatever I liked, and I'd put it in a box. There was a time where I used to hang them up on walls. I would hang them up on my son's walls. I rarely ever opened my action figures. There was no real need to. I guess my love for action figures was not only as part of my childhood, but as the art, directly the art behind an action figure. I mean, there has to be a thought process. There has to be a team of people that get together and start plotting and planning these action figures. And then it goes from the thought process to this plan that includes molding the figures and painting them and so forth and so on. So I've always respected dope action figures. I was a huge fan of the McFarlane figures, just because of the detail and colors on them so many years ago. Marvel Legends was always something I collected from the very first line. I'm a huge Marvel fan, and finally we had some Marvel figures that had more than 5 to 10 points of articulation. I'm being honest, had more than 5 points of articulation, because most of the figures, except for Joe's back in the day, always had really good articulation for a 3.75 inch figure. So anyway, went to Toys R Us, bought some mini-mates, some Avengers mini-mates, and then I had just gone on Instagram around that time, and I was learning about hashtags. So I get home and I hashtag action figures and Avengers and mini-mates, and so I put a picture up, hashtag that, then I start clicking on the hashtag so I can see, and I'm seeing like these amazing action figure displays with backgrounds, and I was like, wow, I was blown away. One of the dudes that struck me right away was Darius, the amazing Darius Prince. So Darius was the first dude that I saw, that I learned about ACBA. I remember contacting him eventually, and Darius is a cool dude, man. Darius will talk to anyone. And I actually took cues from Darius, because to this day, I don't care who's approaching me, man. I'm gonna talk to anybody. If you wanna talk action figures or you need some information, I'll holler at you. Sometimes it may take me a few days, but I'll get back to you. And I got that from Darius, man. So I hit Darius up, and Darius explained what ACBA was to me. He turned me on to the Facebook page. At that point, I had disconnected my Facebook, got an account, and decided I'm gonna make a specifically for action figures and whatnot. So that's how I learned about ACBA. I remember one of the first times I posted a picture in the group, it got criticized pretty bad. I don't want to say it got criticized pretty bad. There was some criticism of the picture, right? And the criticism, in my opinion, they could have approached me better. They could have approached me better. They could have said, you know, next time do this. It just seemed like I felt, I don't know, I felt a certain type of way, and I was like, man, if this is what ACBA is, you know. So I took a step back, but then I said, you know, that's one or two people who are feeling that way. I can't condemn the whole ACBA crew, right? Because that's unfair. Soon enough, I got in contact with Boog, and I started talking to Boog, and I remember telling Boog, you know, this was like 3 years ago. I remember telling Boog, man, this ACBA thing you got potentially is amazing. It's amazing. What I can see happening with this just was blowing my mind then. And Boog was seeing that vision too. Obviously, it's his vision, you know, but I was just seeing, you know, from my perspective, from my reality. We had a good conversation. I remember I sent Boog some action figures because he was doing this giveaway for teens, giving action figures away every couple of months for anybody. I think it was 16 and under as a raffle. So after we spoke, and I don't remember if it was Boog or maybe Darius. I don't remember kind of voicing my opinion and hearing back that that's a concern that they have, and they're gonna be working on that. They're gonna get some new administrators, and they're gonna make sure that it's a very friendly community, understanding that it's also a competitive community. You know, and it's based on contests that ACBA throws out. You know, you want to compete, you want to try to be the best poser. So that's my background with ACBA. That's what ACBA, how I started with ACBA. So soon after that, or right around that time, I created my Instagram action figure account, my Instagram action figure account, which is Al_figures. So that was just gonna be an account. I was on Instagram with my own personal account, my kids, my fam, whatever I was eating, the shoes I was wearing. But then I wanted an account just for action figures, so that's what I did. A little while after that, I was going through Instagram, and I noticed that there was another group using the ACBA logo, and I remember thinking that I'm pretty sure I had already heard from Boog that it was copyrighted. I remember seeing that, and I think it was brought to the attention. I think it was brought to Boog's attention. I'm not sure. I might have brought it to his attention, but I think a couple of different sources I hit him up. It wasn't just me, you know, just because I understand that my background. You know, I had a t-shirt company for a little bit, so I had to go and get my name, you know, some small business, and get a copy written and all that other good stuff. So I understood that's a process and it costs some money. So I just, you know, turned Boog onto that. But again, he already knew that was happening. He contacted somebody over in that group and explained to them that they can't really do that. Now, this is where it starts to get a little sticky. At first, people were like, what's the big deal? They're using that logo, so what? I mean, the big deal is that if you take Nike's logo and you put your new company name under it and you start advertising that, you're gonna get sued. Simple as that. So I don't think they all understood that was a big deal right then and there, you know, but they agreed to change it, and they became ATA, right? And that's where things started to get a little crazy. At this point, I'm just an ACBA member, and I love what they do. My background in the arts is specifically graffiti. I've been a graffiti artist for over 20 years. So I also grew up in the inner city. And now that I'm speaking about this, I feel like I've had this rant before, but I just want to get everybody back in the loop. So as a graffiti artist, it is important to be original. You can't... I used to write Days, D-A-Y-Z, that was my tag name. That's what I still write, that's my tag name, right? So if there's a guy that comes out and he writes Pays, P-A-Y-Z, and he uses pretty much my style, just because he changed the D to a P doesn't make it okay. He still bit and copied my style. I mean, that's frowned upon. That's frowned upon in the graffiti community. That's frowned upon in almost any community that's creative. It is not a good idea to just take somebody's work and act like, oh, whatever. They're just toys. Well, you know, the sculptors that are selling their sculpts for $1,000, $100,000 in cases, I'm sure. And they start with clay. You know, clay is what we used to use in kindergarten. So does that mean that the sculptor has no credibility because it's just clay? What's the big deal? Somebody copied your work, so what? And I remember in kindergarten, they used to give us paintbrushes and we used to paint. Sometimes they would bring canvases or canvas material so we could paint on canvases. So if I go and I take somebody's work and I copy somebody's work and give them no credit, what's the argument then? Well, it's just paint, it's just brushes, what's the big deal? So this notion that it's not a big deal because it's toys is ridiculous. It doesn't matter what the medium that is being used for the art, it just matters that it's an art form, your art form, and you took it to that level, you took it there. So I'm trying to get all my thoughts out because I've been wanting to get into the conversations back and forth with people, and I haven't been able to. Again, I wasn't feeling good this weekend, and I think the best way to address it is just to talk to people. And so I'm on my way to work actually. And the reason I'm holding the camera is I don't have it really stable, so if I'm taking a turn, it's gonna just fall like it just did. So last week we saw that somebody posted a picture of a Captain America scene that was created by Pharaoh Black. And basically in the scene it was Captain America hiding out. You know, he was down, he had his shield up, and he had like his finger to his mouth because there was a little kid, and he was telling that little kid, be quiet, I don't want the bad guys to know I'm here, right? So Pharaoh had created this picture back in January. I guess maybe a week ago, a member from the ATA group created a very similar, extremely similar. Captain America was on his knees, the shield was like this, the finger was like that, there was a little kid. Pharaoh Black had a couple barrels stacked up, he had a couple barrels stacked up. There was some bad guys in the background. The guy put the guy in the background, some guys in the background. So if that picture would have been created and he would have said, this is inspired from from Pharaoh Black picture, it would have died. It would have been like, oh, that's not a big deal. That's paying homage to an artist. There's nothing wrong with that. But when he got confronted with it, he was like, yeah, I might have seen that. There's no way you might have seen something and then it's pretty much exactly the same. So to me, I took offense to that. Cause like, come on, B, like, who you bullshitting? Cause it ain't me, it ain't us. You know, like okay, so my personal opinion on it. Now let's go back to what a lot of the responses that I'm hearing is, what's the big deal? They're just toys. Why are grown men fighting over this? Who cares? Usually the people who have that response are artists. To you, it doesn't click, and I understand that. That's okay. That's fine. I would, just because let's say your opinion is they're just toys, I'm not gonna go back and forth with you because in your mind you've already made that decision. So I don't need to try to convince you otherwise. I know how I feel about it. I don't really care how you feel about it. But when you start creating art, when you start spending time, energy, doing research, setting up scenes, creating dials or having them commissioned, looking at your scene for various days to make sure everything's correct. That you're taking it to another level. At that point, you're taking it to the level of art. You make sure your lighting is correct, that your picture's contained. That's ACBA. ACBA, I've said it before, is about taking a comic book page and replicating it. Maybe not the exact same setup, but replicating how that comic page looked, that panel looked. Now, then the question becomes, well, if you're replicating a panel, isn't that, you're just saying it's not a good idea to bite? No, it's not a good idea to bite. That's not a good idea. But it's okay to be inspired and say this was inspired by Amazing Spider-Man number 32. It was a great scene and it's inspired by that. Even if I took a picture that Boog created and tried to replicate it, I would say this was inspired by Boog. And no one's gonna bat an eye at that, because that's okay. That's, as an artist, you're finding your way. So sometimes paying homage or replicating some work, it's okay. But don't act like you didn't do that. That's the silliest thing in the world. So that was the problem here. So what stemmed from that issue was a bigger thing that was happening in the background that not everybody knows about. About a year ago, maybe, I was made an administrator of the ACBA group. So I'm one of, I think there's like 28, 29 of us. I'm also an administrator of the Dial Structure group. Both these groups being on Facebook. So what we started realizing is that some of the dudes in this crew, and the worst part is pretty much the management, the admins, like the guys who run the group, for whatever reason, every chance they got, they would just throw stones our way. Real slick, they would have a podcast and they'd say something towards ACBA, and then they had these little jokes, just really little silly things. For 2 years, we didn't say shit. We didn't say anything. We stayed quiet. We didn't feel, it just wasn't worth getting into an argument with people who, no matter how you explained it to them, just weren't getting it. They were looking at it from a certain angle, and they just weren't willing to look at it from another angle. I think that's all right. That's who you are. So, we've had enough. We've just had enough of these sideways remarks and all these little, just real little silly things that they kept throwing shade at us, and then what happened is somebody would join the ACBA group, right? And I'm an admin, so I'm on the page daily. And one of the things I do, I don't even know if my fellow admins know this, but one of the things I do is I like to go through the page, specifically making sure that no one's attacking anyone. Because it's a lot of damn people on that page. 7,000 or whatever it is. So what happens is somebody puts a picture, and I've done this too. I'll criticize that picture. I'll give constructive criticism, nothing mean, And for the most part, 99% of the time, that's what happens. But what happens is that there's some people who just can't take criticism. And so you say, hey, listen, you should have had your shot contained. We can see a little bit of a remote control in the background. They'll just quit ACBA, and they'll leave, and then they'll find out that there's another group, and that group can't stand ACBA, and they're like, yeah, I don't like it either, because they said that my control was showing, and so it's not that we're negative. It's just that we want all of us to improve. We want everybody to be an amazing artist, That's why we take our time, my time. I don't get paid to do this. I get to take my time to go through these pictures, and if I can lend some constructive criticism, I will. I don't have to. I can just stay quiet, or if somebody else is attacking in a way, or their criticism is a little too harsh, then I can be like, oh, you take a step back, all right? So, it just gets really silly because for us, because we are a business, ACBA is a business. We've recorded everything that this group has thrown our way. Like, we have documented everything because that's what businesses do. And so they keep trying to act like they're the saviors of this community, and ACBA is the evil ones. And listen, y'all, I'm 41 years old. My oldest son turned 24 on Saturday. My middle son's 18. My daughter's 12. I work for the city of Boston. I've been working there now for like 11 years. But I've had a job consistently since I was like 15. I've never been unemployed for a long time. I've gotten arrested like one time for driving without insurance. I grew up in a tough neighborhood, but I never got arrested for doing any, I sold a little bit of drugs here, when I was younger. But I never got arrested for any nonsense like that. And my point in saying all this is that I'm a grown-ass man. I mean, I don't I'm not in this to challenge people. I'm not in this, to prove to people that I'm right and they're wrong, or it's not that at all. I try my very best to take every situation, step back from it, and analyze it. And I understand why some of that stigma still lives in terms of ACBA, what people think. But what's worse, and I've talked about this before, is a lot of people, instead of doing the research themselves, they go off of what somebody else says, which is just such an immature way of looking at anything. Like, well, I don't know this person, but if you tell me this person's bad, then that person's bad. No, man, check it out for yourself. So I think a lot of it is just propaganda, to be honest with you. I think a lot of the ACBA bashing is just propaganda. That is it's too bad, because honestly, from an artistic standpoint, now as an artist, I have always appreciated art. So when I was a graffiti artist, there was always these little summer competitions where we'd face each other, graffiti, and there'd be judges and the whole nine. And I've always respected the fact that somebody had to put in work to create that, So I tend to look at art, I step back and I look at it. And I did the same thing with ACBA, I did the same thing with ATA, it's just amazing what perception can do, so people perceive a certain thing and it's not even true. It's not even truth. I would never be involved with any organization, group, if they were bad people, if they were negative, if the goal was to badmouth people, if the goal was anything but progression. If your goal isn't progression, I'm not riding with you. It's just not gonna happen. So in studying everything, analyzing everything, from a long time ago, speaking to Boog and speaking to other members of the ACBA group, it was clear what their intentions were. Their intentions were to basically create art using action figures and dioramas and props. But to do it correctly, again, anatomy, y'all. Anatomy. If you draw two humans hugging, and one dude's arm is so long that it extends to her meat, if it's not right, it's not right. You know what I mean? They teach this in colleges, in our colleges, how the anatomy works, how wrists turn and elbows turn, and elbow can't turn. So ACBA took a little piece of that as well. I was like, if something is posed incorrectly, then it's posed incorrectly. I mean, I remember doing this one shot where I had a Hydra soldier was in one of the train stations I created, running from a train. So I had his right foot and his right arm both up. But when you run, that's freaking impossible. So when your arm goes up, that foot goes to the back, right? Something that simple. I remember taking the shot, and Farrell Black, as a matter of fact, pointed out that that's incorrect. I fixed it. I didn't take offense to it. He was right. So, for the most part, people's attitudes are going to continue to be, it's not a big deal. They're just toys. They're just pictures. It's not a big deal. Well, it's somewhat of a big deal because you're looking at them or creating this. One or the other. If you're putting in your input, you're either one of these artists or you like to spend some of your time seeing this type of work. So it's not that minimal, right? I got into a conversation based on the post that I put. I just basically put one of Nas's lines when he crushed Jay-Z in that song Ether. And one kid who had already been arguing for ATA and another post came on, and we went back and forth, all respectful. And at the end, he says, I guess I was just looking for peace, and it's just not happening. And I don't know if it's about peace. I think if we would have done anything, first of all, Boog would have allowed ACBA members or admins to take it that far. Because it's not as if it's ATA members. It's the admins who are coming hard at us. Book wouldn't allow that. That's not the way we roll. We got better shit to do than that. But if that was the case, and we're wrong, then we're wrong. We say we're wrong. So they're not going to admit they're wrong. They're going to keep saying the same thing. They're calling us elitist. They're calling... It's so silly. So, peace in what way? Some of it has gone personal. One dude in particular is really shooting out at the mouth. I mean, he's really saying a lot of really negative and hurtful things. And what happens is that when people get attacked like that verbally, internet or no internet, eventually you catch up with people face to face. That's gonna be awesome. So yeah, man, so I just wanted to touch base with you guys. I gave myself 30 minutes. I'm at 26:09. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys my perspective, where I'm coming from. I love ACBA. I love action figures. I love toy photography. It's a new thing in my life. It's been happening now for 3 years, and I've loved every minute of it. It's been great. It's been great. It's replaced. Dial making has replaced graffiti for me in some ways. Graffiti is a difficult thing to do these days, man. Like, you gotta stand in front of a wall for like 4, 5, 6 hours, and your back's hurting, it's all hot and sweaty. I can just make a dial inside an AC. So, I love this, and I think it's too bad that it's gotten to this point. And we're human, we can only take so much. It got abusive sometimes. It was just, and then it gets worse when members, like Rich, my boy Rich, who got a bunch of dollars from me a couple years ago, who's somebody who I respect. He has a podcast right now. I want to say it's the Three Amigos, something like that. I'm sorry, Rich, if I get that wrong. But Rich was with, Rich started hanging out with ATA. He started doing a podcast with them. And at some point, he saw what we already have seen. And he left. And on his way out, of course, they throw shots at him as well. And these are the type of people ATA, admins are. They'll love you for a minute, then if you don't agree with them, you're out, and they're just gonna keep talking shit to you on your way out. Rich is the type of dude that just was like, whatever. He didn't, what I love about Rich is that he didn't even go back at them. They went at him, and he was like, whatever. If y'all have any questions, feel free, leave them in the comments. I don't mind answering those questions. I was trying to get all my thoughts out. I think I did. Ultimately, I want everyone to understand that it's not. If you believe it's a silly argument, then you have that right. But as if you're an artist, if you're a true artist, you understand why it has to be argued. You don't have a choice in that. As an artist, you just don't have a choice. So just because you look at it differently doesn't make the way you look at it right. It doesn't make the way I look at it right either. It's different realities, different perspectives. But if you think that I make a big deal out of toys and you think it's silly, that's your opinion. I may think it's silly that you don't understand how I'm coming at it from the perspective of an artist. And a lot of times those conversations just don't need to go on because we're just looking at it from two different angles altogether. So there's really no point. We're not going to be anywhere. Ultimately, I want the community to be strong and prosper. But there's a cancer inside the community right now. And the more people that ride for their cause is giving that cancer some more strength. And so, I hope that my words are understandable to you guys, and you understand where I'm coming from. And I think it's important that ACBA just stops being quiet about it, because for 2 years we've just taken it, and so it's time for us to speak up, because it's just getting ridiculous, really. So let's see what happens. I'm not sure what we have planned, what we're going to do, if we're going to do anything. We might not do anything about it, as we've been doing for 2 years. Like, whatever, let them say what they're going to say. We may take action. We may not. Who knows? But just wanted to share. And I am past my 30 minutes, and I'm out. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, everybody. Be easy. Peace.